5:30 by the official clock, and I'll call the September 7th, 2022 meeting of the Municipal Building Commission to order. We don't have to have a roll call, but for the record, we have Ed Stanton, Jackie Romanicki, Jerry Freecott, Andrew Acosta, Jay Allard, and myself, which constitutes...
Gail Clark.
Andrew.
Oh, and Gail Clark, who just snuck in at the last second. Good to see you, Gail.
Thanks, good to see you.
We have a supermajority now, so that's great. And I think that the first thing we'll do is talk about the elementary school gym floors. Mark Sawatsky is unable to make it, but Jeremy, do you want to give an update?
He
did give us a whole bunch of field reports and the narrative, right?
Yeah, so we've got, I guess, three things to talk about on the gym floor. So Mark's update from his August 31st update, and then the daily reports he sent along with that, with photos and all the daily monitoring he's been doing. The takeaway from this, and was in his August 31st memo, and he confirmed it today, that Hill Roberts is to be complete the week of September 12th, so next week, and Hyman Fine will be complete the week after that. The architect was at Hill Roberts today, and he okayed them to begin the installation of the floors. So the final floors are being installed at Hill Roberts. I don't know if they got started this afternoon or will get started tomorrow, but the architects okayed it. Hyman Fine's behind. We were waiting for air samples. The first set of air samples came back, and they failed the air sampling test. So it takes, I think, 2 days to collect the samples, and then there's like a 2 to 3 day turnaround from the lab. So once we fail, it takes another week to get that going again. But the anticipation right now is that next week for Hill Roberts completion, and Hyman Fine the completion the week after that.
So just so those tens of people who listen to our meetings know, they have a complete system protecting the gyms from the rest of the school, with the plastic sheathing and with the fans and large plastic tubes where they're sucking all of the air to the outside, out the back door basically, so that and we've had the industrial hygienist involved so that none of the children or the staff are impacted by what's going on. Obviously, it took the contractor about a month late to get started.
Just about. So also the one thing that we were concerned about and was executed sufficiently was that the dumpster of hazardous materials was removed before students were in the building. So all of the dumpster that contained all of the mercury emitting, when it breaks down, sort of material, was removed before any students were actually in the building, which was important to us.
And then just so everyone knows, the process was that they mechanically scraped off the old floor. And then they had to grind the glue off, which was quite an operation, with an actual tent that the workers worked inside of to hold the dust down. But they ended up having to have people up on lifts cleaning the girders in the gym, because dust, as much as you can try to get it all vented outside, there was still dust. So they had to clean those girders. And that's part of the air quality testing that we had to do, was to make sure that everything was clean before they went to the next step. Then they have to put in a leveling course of concrete, some sort of grout would be correct, Jerry? Is that how you would describe it?
I'm not sure.
Well, I do know that they had to put on the concrete floor a leveling course to make sure that the floor was perfectly level, and then they get to pour the new liquid floor that goes on top of it.
Well, that stuff is poured in?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, I believe so, or at least the adhesive is poured in. I believe I don't think the flooring's poured in because they were talking about the additional colors requiring additional cuts and additional waste.
So that comes in rolls
I
then?
believe so. Because actually, I know it does because the logos, the lines, everything like that is printed on the roll that comes in.
Okay, so it's just the glue,
Right.
and then they roll the stuff out, and what they do? Do they heat treat it to make no seams?
I'm not sure. That's a good question for Mark. I'll send that over to him.
So then, what we've had is, as a result of this, is much more of Mark's time.
Yeah, so I'll get into that. So that's change order 1 that you see for Port Construction Consulting. And in his memo, which I'll read for in part, late deliveries cause additional services, both from the schools. They've had custodians work overtime on weekends to open up the building and stay late to do 10-hour days and do 6-day weeks. And the architect and their consultants, as well as Port Construction Consulting, have incurred more costs as a result of the delay. So we have a couple of ways to approach this. Mark was deliberate to not endorse one way or the other in his memo and kind of let the commission weigh in. I'll weigh in one way. So the city is entitled to pursue liquidated damages in the amount of $1,000 a day from August 19th, or every day after August 19th. My approach would be, rather than try to do it that heavy-fisted, I guess, or that bluntly, is to quantify the increased cost that we have. So Mark's $19,800 is an estimate from him for change order 1. Once the project is complete, that's enough. He'll only bill for actual hours. You saw on the roof replacements at the fire departments, he billed for less than his PO was for. So my approach would be to take Mark's actual overages, Port Construction Consulting's actual overages, Socotec's actual overages, and whatever costs the school department incurred as a result of overtime, and issue a credit change order to the contractor. And should the contractor not agree to that amount, then we pursue the liquidated damages amount. I'm not sure which will be greater at this point, but that's kind of up for discussion for you all as well.
So Mark is charging us additional time?
He's putting in more hours than his initial task order.
Why is he putting in more hours?
Because he put in a bunch of hours during the process of getting Clean Harbors on board for the contractor, and then the actual time on site has been longer. The construction period's been longer, and he's done daily monitoring activities. So his time on site and his time in preparation have been greater than his initial estimate was.
So how does he quantify that?
We have an hourly rate with him.
Yeah, so he charges an hourly rate, and then each hour he works, he then bills us for.
But did he charge us on his proposal for a certain amount of hours?
Correct. He
So how do you,
proposed.
what I'm getting to is, how do you get to the point where he's charged us to this, and from here on in, he's over? How do we determine that point?
So his proposal was for a set amount of hours,
Oh, okay.
and the total number, the $46,200, which was his contract amount, was divided by his hourly rate is however many hours, and that's how his proposal was put together. He's exceeded those hours, and the way Port is construing it, and the way I also construe it is, but for the failures of the contractor, those hours would not have been incurred. So in order to pay, we're increasing Port's contract by $19,800, and but for the contractor's action, so we should decrease the contractor's contract by $19,800 to pay for it. But Mark's number is an estimate right now. He's not it's probably on the high end of things, so we don't have to come back for change order 2. So my approach would be, once we have the actual number, issue the credit change order to the contractor at that point.
In terms of the contractor's eyes, they see a negative change order come from the city, and what gives them the feeling that liquidated damages won't follow if they agree? Is there a way to?
Oh, no,
Yep.
we'd have to agree with them that it's
Exactly.
one or the other.
We would extend it within that. It's a good question. Within that credit change order, that negative change order, we would also extend the completion date as described in the contract. So the completion date was August 19th. We would then extend that to September 24th or whatever, and then liquidated damages would no longer apply.
It's just in my experience, I don't know about yours, but in my experience, the contractors don't like to report to their bonding company that they paid liquidated damages, but a change order doesn't carry the same stigma.
Doesn't exist, right?
And if we're made whole,
Right.
that's the whole purpose anyway, right?
Are there any other non-financial impacts? I mean, with school being open now, that was never anticipated.
How do we quantify
The
missed
loss of
days in the
space.
gym?
I mean,
That was my question too. I wondered if they rent to any outside agencies after school that we're then losing that rental income.
I think they just sent the kids outside.
No, in terms of like.
Did
the
Attleboro
schools I
Youth
work at,
Basketball
we
use
rent
it?
the gym.
Oh,
to
you mean like
outside
a-
organizations.
like
They
a-
may not do that
Like a
now.
basketball pickup league that
Yeah, things like
plays
that.
on Monday nights.
Yeah.
So yeah, that use of school building revolving fund is out the money. I'm not sure how the school departments is set up. That largely just pays for custodial overtime and some small wear and tear. And since we're not getting the wear and tear and we're not having the custodial overtime, I don't think that lost revenue is, I don't know, worth calculating.
Where do you see the biggest time? Would the biggest delay come from? Was it the supply?
It was Clean Harbors. So that was the hazardous materials subconsultant for the contractor. So it wasn't filed sub bids or anything. This was who the contractor engaged to do this sort of thing, and they didn't get whatever clearances they needed. It was tied up with Clean Harbors legal, and so FJ Roberts was continuing to not be able to mobilize until Clean Harbors was in place to do. So from my perspective, I don't care what FJ Roberts does internally to figure out how to pay for this, but I imagine they would turn around and point at Clean Harbors and say, you failed your contract with us, and pass the damages on that way.
Yeah, our understanding is that Roberts is a company that installs floors, but they undertook to be the general contractor in this case. And since it didn't require a filed sub bid for what Clean Harbors did, they just bought out the job from them.
Yeah, so how they work that internally, it's kind of up to them. But yeah, I think that was the original sin, so to speak, was they didn't get the go-ahead to start nearly until 4 weeks after they were supposed to. But from our perspective, they continued to promise on-time delivery up until 2 or 3 weeks before the delivery was scheduled. So I think there was unrealistic expectations from them this whole time.
It certainly seems like it took them longer than they thought to scrape everything off of the concrete underlayment.
it also seems like from Mark's daily reports, there weren't too many activities at once going on. It seemed like one scraper, not more than one.
And Mark,
And if you're under a time crunch where it was clear
right,
what the expectation was and the date to open, they just,
Mark asked them to double their crews and work in both schools at once, and they declined.
yeah, so
So I think we're entitled to be paid, and whether it's going to be $35,000 for liquidated damages or some other number for our actual costs, I think we clearly ought to be paid, right?
And to be clear, this $19,800, like I said, was probably an overestimation from Port, but we still have a change order that will be coming for Socotec, the architect on this, because they had to further engage with their subconsultant on hazardous materials.
And we'll get an invoice from the schools.
Yeah, I'm still working with Mark Furtado on how we're going to make them whole on that. It's tough because those salaries aren't charged to the capital project. So I may do that outside of the capital project process. But the schools will be made whole, and that cost will be passed on to the contractor, yes.
Right, because the custodians have a contract with the school, so the school just pays them for the overtime, right?
Right.
But somehow or other, we have to get money from our project to the school budget.
And there was a direct request from the contractor to have a custodian on site on
They need it.
Saturdays.
Yeah, they work Saturdays to
So that was a
get
clear.
it done as quickly as they could, once we got the
And-
fire lit under them.
And it has been crystal clear to the contractor that 10-hour days and Saturdays incur custodial overtime for which they will be responsible. That has been said 6 different ways.
So initially, what was a 8-hour workday? So the custodian wouldn't be additional.
Correct. There was
For
no
the-
marginal cost from the project, but now there's those 2 hours because the custodian has to lock up the building when they're done.
Yeah.
And then we didn't want contractors without school staff there.
Over and above an 8-hour day, Monday through Friday, and then any
Everything on
weekend.
Saturday. Correct.
And I think it was certainly in our interest to have them work on Saturdays.
Oh, yeah.
As long as it didn't cost us anything,
We would have been done at Thanksgiving otherwise.
right? So, do we need to vote on Mark's change order number
Yeah,
one?
so we need to vote on Mark's change order. We don't need to vote on the liquidated damages or how we assess the contractor because that we'll take an actual number and see how that compares with liquidated damages, and that will likely be at the October meeting. So the only vote tonight is on change order 1 for Port Construction Consulting. So the original contract was for $46,200. The change order is for $19,800, which is a total contract value of $66,000.
Any
So moved.
questions? Thank you. Any, is there a second?
Gail.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Sounds unanimous. We do not have a bill from F.J. Roberts yet, right?
Correct.
So we don't have to hold anything back at this point.
Not yet.
All right. Is there anything else on that project?
No,
Hopefully we'll have a certificate of substantial completion, and then credit change orders to vote on at the October meeting.
Okay. The Attleboro Pawtucket Water Interconnect.
Yep, so we met as a finance team, and Courtney sent me over a description to be able to seek an additional loan authorization. The path we want to pursue right now is the bifurcated procurement that Matt Pitta and Courtney Allen talked about when they were here the last month or the month before. Last month, I believe, where the city procures the equipment, and then when that is at or near completion, we procure the installation of it. So Matt Pitt is working on getting me the top line number on what we need, and then I'll back out on what we have. And then the anticipation is to send that on the September 20th communication to Municipal Council for not an amended loan authorization. We've already borrowed the money, but a new loan authorization to put into the fund. So
Which
that'll be,
means that probably wouldn't occur until, the second meeting in October? And it'll be sometime in November before it's authorized, correct?
if it goes smoothly. The council is aware this is coming, or councilors are aware that it's coming. What individual pushback there may be to more money in this project that was authorized in 2016, I don't quite know right now, but that's the path we're taking.
Well, I don't want to oversimplify it, but if they don't, authorize the additional bonding, the project dies, correct?
Right, and we've spent, I don't know offhand, but I want to say 250,000, give or take, on engineering already.
So nothing we can do, but perhaps one of us or more can appear at the public hearing whenever it may be.
Yes, and Courtney will be there as well.
Okay. So when Matt gave us a timeline, that was from starting now.
Yeah, he was about a month ahead of time. Yeah.
So therefore, if we can't put this out on the street to bid until December or January, and what were they looking at?
56-week lead time, I think, on the VFDs.
which is 13 months.
A year and a month, yep. So February of '24.
Yeah, so let's hope it keeps on raining.
That's to procure the equipment. And then
Yes.
there will be a separate bid for the installation.
Yeah, so when we know that the equipment is 120 days away from being delivered, we would then put out to bid the installation of the equipment. Because that was one of the big unknowns, if you remember, was that the contractor was saying, well, if I bid at today's labor rates for something that I'm not going to be doing for 18 months, I got to build a lot into it in order to cover myself.
Right.
But if it's 90 days out or 60 days out from when a bid is accepted, that's a different story.
And we are planning to pursue a similar approach, not that it's in front of this commission, but with temporary PFAS treatment at the Wading River plant, which we're funding through American Rescue Plan Act money. We're doing the same thing because we're finding the same lead times and the same contractor apprehension, where we're going to procure it when it's close to being delivered, then procure the installation.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, moving right along, we had a kickoff meeting yesterday for the Council on Aging.
Yes, so David and David from Abacus, Melissa Tucker and Shannon Rice from Council on Aging, and Joe Feroce, the chair of the Council on Aging Board, Jack, myself, Molly from my department, and the mayor all met yesterday. I think we got a good visioning session, at least in terms of how the project is going to look structurally going forward. We don't have what programs we need and what rooms and how many square feet. We're not at that stage yet. But Abacus is going to pursue the kind of site evaluation and the program evaluation in a parallel track. They'll be in the city with Council on Aging staff in October to go look at some sites. We have given them a list of about 10 sites to start from. Not that that's the fence they need to stay in, but and then they hope to come to our meeting here in November to update you all on the progress. And they're going to meet with the Council on Aging board as well. So I think it was a productive meeting. In November they'll be here to tell you more.
Anybody have any questions on that?
And in a similar vein, the public safety complex feasibility study. So I reached out to KBA this morning.
Yeah.
So they are in the process of reviewing. So both police chief and the fire chief were sent detailed questionnaires. How many of this? How many of that? What do you do? All these sorts of things. How many vehicles? So they're in the process of reviewing those responses, and they're coordinating with their subconsultant and both the chiefs to come review the existing stations this month. And then they are also hopeful that either the October or November meeting that they can come and update the commission as well as to where they're at. So in the next 2 months we should have some tangible progress on these.
Good.
Did we have minutes to approve this evening?
Yeah, that and bills. I wasn't going to get them. I wasn't going to let us go with them.
Thank you, but we will get to that before we
Okay.
adjourn.
Didn't want to forget.
And then you've sent down a request to the council for some money for us to do our new mission?
Not
Where you
yet.
are.
We have a. Did we I haven't sent money down for that. I sent money down for Highland, which is what I thought you were going to ask about.
Well, that's my next question.
Okay, well, I'll answer that one first because I have a better answer. Yes, I sent down $75,000 to council as seed money. So right now we have a very rough approximation of what a pavilion would look like and cost at Highland Park. So to spend some more money on design to refine that, I've sent a request for $75,000 to do that. I have not sent, I'll make myself a note, I have not sent a request for a broad admission of a municipal building inventory. So I will do that.
And
It'll be on the 20th communication.
was there something else you sent down that we talked about yesterday, or am I not remembering right?
We also talked about refining the scope for the City Hall project, which I started to draft a memo on. I'm looking to also kind of get seed money on that to hire. So we got a few $1,000s to hire Russo Barr to come and do a building envelope survey. I'd like to refine that number a little bit more, spend some time doing a hazardous materials evaluation, and then get a total project budget. So from Russo Barr, we got a hard project budget. So I'd like to spend a similar amount of money to cost out OPM design, that sort of thing, and then get a loan authorization this fall to start a project next summer. Start a construction project next summer.
Okay, so we have minutes from August 3rd. You got them all, or you all got them by email. Anybody have any questions or comments? Otherwise, a motion is in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I heard everyone say yes, it passes unanimously. And then we have a bill for the gym floors for Port Construction for $27,450, and for some cleanup work at the library for STV DPM for $348. Jeremy, those are in order to pay?
Yeah, it's the largest bill we've seen from Mark, and almost half of his total contract value, which is why I sent around both the daily reports and the invoice itself. He was on site almost every day in August. So yeah, reviewed them. They both look good to go.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. How are things over at the library? Have they solved the problems, or?
Yeah, so there was a leak in the roof.
Oh my God.
So there's some wet ceiling tiles. Track was there this morning, meeting with Amy.
So this was from the 7 inches of rain we had?
Yeah, that's
Bless
one
you.
of the other downsides of not having any rain all summer is you don't know that a roof leaks until it rains. So Track was there investigating, and they were having the roofing subconsultant come out to further investigate.
I suspect that the membrane itself is not the problem. It's caulking around the penetrations. That's what we heard at this morning's meeting. There were a few issues over at the high school as well. 7 inches of wind-driven rain is a good test.
How are the fire station roofs? No complaints from
No,
those?
nothing. Yeah,
Good.
those have.
How about the heating system on the library? Have they done anything with that yet?
I believe they've resolved there was 2 rooms that were cold spots. And I believe, yeah, those have been resolved.
And were there some elevator issues?
Yeah, that seemed, after some investigation from both STV, the library, and United, seemed to fall outside of the elevator work that had gone on. There were alarms that had tripped, and it was not to do with the project.
Okay. There were some folks in the back. If you're waiting for the Conservation Commission, they're about a half an hour from now.
Well, that's why we got up, so thank you so much. We appreciate that.
You're free, though, this is a public meeting of the Municipal Building Commission. You're free to be bored, out of your mind listening to this stuff. But yeah, you're.
We had 30 minutes, like you said. We're going to go outside and have a conversation amongst ourselves. Please continue what you're doing. Sorry to disturb you.
No, I just didn't want you to think you were in the wrong place if you were waiting for
No,
that.
we understand. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Any other business that we need to do?
That's it from me.
Okay.
So move to adjourn?
At 6 o'clock.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Busy.